So the world may be captivated by the solar eclipse, but the real dark cloud hanging over us is not the moon, it's Dark Brandon, who quite disturbingly takes his foreign policy directives from the Queers for Palestine. More on that later. In news you probably don't give one single crap about, Don Lemon got married to the biggest terror threat in America, a white man. Plus, Donald Trump, with little more than a small stage and an American flag, outraised Joe Biden's Bury-in Bill star-studded fundraiser by $25 million, and the Democrats are big mad. Last but not least, people are finally giving a damn about women's basketball, but unfortunately, at least one of the women who coaches it welcomes the patriarchy to come and destroy it. And I have some final thoughts. The show starts now. So a lot of us are struggling to keep up with everyday bills. Everything is still really expensive. Credit card interest rates are insane, and most of us are carrying a balance from month to month. If you own a home, I want you to call my friends at American Financing. Interest rates have dropped into the fives, the lowest they've been in a long time, and they're saving their customers an average of $854 a month by tapping into their home's equity and wiping out high-interest credit card debt. $854 a month is like a $10,000 raise. American Financing never charges any upfront fees, and that's why they have over 7,200 Google reviews and a 4.7-star rating. They've helped thousands of customers save real money and put themselves into a better financial position. And if you call today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. So call today to see what they can do for you. 866-890-8585. That's 866-890-8585. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net. So folks, it's been a weird couple of weeks within a really weird 3.5 years. An earthquake, a solar eclipse, and people actually watching women's basketball, all things we didn't see coming. Well, Caitlin Clark can single-handedly take credit for that last one, but as for the other two, some liberals are of course crying climate change, which is untrue and absurd. The climate apocalypse hoax is not only a religion for some of these green hairs, but also a giant grift for money and attention. And the poster child for that is, of course, Greta Thunberg, who delivered another performance of a lifetime as she was arrested for refusing to get off the street at a climate protest. She looks like a 6-year-old getting picked up from playtime, and I'd also like to point out that her and her pals sitting on the street did absolutely nothing for Mother Earth, but that was never the point. The point was to get that clip, and she got it. If she wanted to help the planet, she and her fellow climate privileged friends could have been out cleaning up trash off of a beach or planting trees, but that wouldn't get spotlight, so sitting on the street it is. But speaking of fake threats, Don Lemon got married to one over the weekend. Yes, Don Lemon, who once confidently declared white men to be America's biggest terror threat, happened to marry one over the weekend, so congrats to them, I guess. But a much bigger congrats to Donald Trump, who raised $50 million at his Saturday fundraiser in Palm Beach. He spoke for about 45 minutes to roughly 120 people. And not only is Joe big mad he can't speak for 5 minutes without getting winded, he's also big mad that his glitzy New York City fundraiser with Barry, Billy, and Colbert raised half that amount. So now he wants you to know that his campaign is about the little people. Little? Like Lizzo?
Folks, you know, Trump is down in Florida today, raising money from a bunch of hedge fund billionaires who want him to cut Social Security and Medicare and their taxes. So I figure there's no better day than today to tell you that in the first quarter of this year, we raised $185 million. Our campaign now has 1.6 million individual donors, and more than 500,000 of those donors are brand new since 2020. This campaign is Scranton versus Palm Beach. This is a grassroots campaign of nurses and teachers and firefighters and cops versus Donald Trump and a couple billionaires looking for a tax cut.
Cops? Really? But Biden's surrogates have the audacity to attack Donald Trump for spending money on legal fees, even though they are largely responsible for that through their weaponization of the justice system.
Every single dime that you give to the Biden-Harris re-election campaign, we spend talking to voters. We have, and since the state, just in the last month or so, we have 100 offices open in the swing states now. We are, of course, engaging, whether it's ad buys, whether it's phone calls. We've made hundreds of thousands of calls to voters. What is he doing? He may put up some money tonight with his hedge fund billionaire friends and a closed-door fundraiser in Palm Beach. We understand that. We are not spending money on legal bills. We are not hawking gold sneakers or any of that stuff.
Oh, a lot to dive into. Joining me now is Uncover DC Editor-in-Chief, Tracy Beans. So, Tracy, right off the bat, I want to talk about something the Democrats are really unhappy about, and that's that despite all of their work to weaponize anything and everything against Donald Trump, he still managed to raise $50 million in Palm Beach over the weekend, which is double what Joe Biden raised in New York City, you know, the day that he conveniently chose to ignore the wake of the fallen officer, Officer Diller. But I'm wondering your take on this. It seems like big numbers for Donald Trump to put up, but he's still behind Joe Biden in fundraising. Is that something that Republicans should be concerned about, in your opinion?
I do think so. And here's the thing, you know, that was a lot of big money donors, and that's wonderful. I think it's great that they're coming out and coming around. However, a lot of regular people on regular paychecks are frustrated. They don't want to donate to the RNC. They don't want to donate to Win Red. And they're getting barraged by hundreds of text messages, nasty marketing, subject lines that aren't spelled correctly, just basically insulting to people's intelligence. And I think that this method of marketing to the Republican in general is really frustrating the small donor who's necessary in a campaign of this significance.
Well, let's talk about that. You know, we've had some shakeups over at the RNC, I think necessary shakeups, but it sounds like to me that you're saying that maybe the RNC shakeups are not necessarily fixing the problem. Maybe they have a whole new set of problems. I know that you're not the first one that's talked about the text messages, the emails, you know, some of it spelled incorrectly, maybe not coming across the most professional. Who do you think ultimately is to blame for those mess ups?
Well, look, the RNC shakeup is continuing. So you can't expect a new quote regime to come in and clean house and then everything works great right away. The timing of it stinks just a little bit because we've got a really important presidential election coming up. But I think that this sort of threatening type marketing that's being embraced, you know, donate now or else, or, you know, we thought we could count on you, but, you know, you haven't done this, that, or the other thing. It's insulting to the Republican voter. So that all needs to change, in my opinion. I don't think that it's working, which is why we're seeing big donors are happy to give right now, which again is a huge positive. But I don't think the smaller donors are feeling very supported or respected. And they're seeing Republicans aren't getting anything done. They're frustrated. They're angry. They're not seeing leadership. So why are they going to pour their money out?
I'm not as worried about Donald Trump's fundraising because I think people are pretty well aware of Donald Trump, and I think he gets so much earned media, even if it's through his own social media, putting out his positions. I don't think there's anybody out there that's really confused on what Donald Trump stands for, what he would do for the country, what he's done for the country. That's going to take a little bit of money, maybe, and some ad buys, but I'm actually far more concerned about other Republicans that are running for things. I don't think we've paid really any attention whatsoever to other Republicans who are running for things. I mean, I don't think that there are many Americans that could tell you the Senate seats that we need to win or the House seats that we should win. I don't think there's been an emphasis really at all on the Republican Party that even if Donald Trump is reelected, we are going to need to have hopefully majorities in Congress, if not just hold our own. And I don't think there's been really any emphasis on that whatsoever. That's partly the RNC's fault, also partly because everybody's so fixated on Donald Trump, and maybe rightfully so. But I want to know your confidence level that we're going to be able to win really anything come November beyond hopefully the White House.
You know, that's sad because it's so much more important. It sounds silly, but the Senate and the House are very, very important no matter who wins the presidency if we don't have majorities there. And you're right, the RNC hasn't really spent, even in the past, not just now. I mean, Lara Trump came in basically saying we're focused on the presidency, but those down ballot races need help. Now, the Senate, I think we have a good opportunity this go around with the Senate. However, I'm not liking a few of the endorsements that I've seen so far from President Trump. One in particular in a primary that's ongoing right now in West Virginia. But we do have a good shot there. In terms of the House, we need to kick it up a notch, and people need to focus local. They need to really focus on what's going on in their area and spend their funds accordingly. Because like you said, if we don't have those seats filled with Republicans when 2024's election rolls around, we're not going to get anything accomplished either way. I wish I could say we've gotten a lot accomplished this time, but I can't. So hopefully it gets better.
Yeah, we have an organizational problem, and as great as it is to put somebody like a Lara Trump in the position because it gets spotlight, I'm not sure how effective it is at getting other Republicans elected. I think there's a big blind spot that the Republican Party has been missing for a long time and hedging everything on Donald Trump, which is great and all, but the Democrats don't do that. The Democrats want to win everything. And they've got plans in place to do just that. So people don't like Joe Biden, but Democrats keep winning elections. There's some kind of a dissonance there that we're not confronting with reality, and it's going to hurt us in the long run. But there is something that Donald Trump said that I think is really important, and that's addressing the issue of abortion. Some conservatives, hardliners, are really upset that he said this. I think this is exactly the tone he needs to take. Let's take a listen, and I want to get your take on it.
My view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart or, in many cases, your religion.
Effective? Tracy, what are your thoughts?
Yes. Now, what my personal belief about abortion has nothing to do with the framework he's discussing here, which is exactly the way it should be. States should decide what their, regulations around this are. If it were up to me, I would vote for no abortion whatsoever. But as we've seen throughout, that's not the will of most of the people. Unfortunately, we're not quite there yet. I think that was a good take that he took, and I'm probably going to take some ire from my very religious friends, but that's what I think he should have done.
Yeah, I want to dig into that because I think the reason that we lost midterms was because of the abortion issue. I think if we lose in 2024, not just the presidency, but other important races, I think it's going to be because of the abortion issue. I think that there's this, as you mentioned, your religious friends. It's great to be religious. It's great to be faith-based. It's great to believe in life and be very pro-life. But I often remind folks that if we can't win a damn election, it really doesn't matter what you want in your church if you can't win something. And I'm wondering if you think Donald Trump is going to cave to kind of the far right or religious right on this issue. And if he does, how bad do you think that's going to be?
No, he won't. He absolutely won't. If he was going to, he would have done it just then. And nobody's going to say anything either way. Nobody's going to speak up from, that kind of wing and condemn him, really, that has been supporting him in the past. I think this is a net status quo for him. It was the right thing to do from a government and policy standpoint. Like, it's in the hands of the states now. That was something he ran on in 2016 and was successful with, if you want to grant him the success. I don't really ever feel it's okay to play politics with a life, which is kind of what we're doing right now. But there are states all over the country where partial birth abortion is legal up until the moment of what would be natural birth. And if we're going to change the culture around that, we need more time. And if this is the way we have to go about it right now, I think it's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think winning elections might be a good start for all of that. Let's talk about another area that's a need to win, that Biden needs to win, and that's Michigan. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas, pro-death to American Israel folks that have really invaded our country, and they're not mincing words when it comes to what they want. Let's take a clip of that and see Biden's foreign policy advisors in action.
Free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Okay, so that's the United States of America. That's not Iran. That's not anywhere else in the world. That's right here in our backyard in Michigan. And Biden desperately needs to win those folks. What does it say about Biden and Democrats that they are actively courting people who are quite comfortable sitting in Dearborn, Michigan, saying that kind of crap?
It's terrible. I'm curious if that person is a United States citizen or not, because if they are, they're granted the same right to free speech that all of us should have. And as a free speech absolutist, I would really like to see those people saying those things, so I know what my enemy is thinking and how far I have to stay away from them. But this is kind of the Democrat Party now. I don't think it's a shock to anybody to see it. It's terrible. It shouldn't be the culture that we have here. But this, again, is a consequence of not winning things. And we can't win things if we don't fight back against stuff like this. And it seems to me like we kowtow and cater to the policies that empower people like that frequently. And so I think that's the biggest problem. I don't see Joe Biden upset about this at all, actually. I think he's in a position where his puppeteers are pulling the strings, and he'll do exactly what they want him to do in terms of where we send aid and what our position is, both in front of and behind the camera. And it's a terrible thing we're dealing with, but let them show themselves. That's basically my opinion on it.
Yeah, let them show themselves, and then maybe if they're saying things like that in the United States of America and they're not a citizen, maybe deport them immediately. And if they are a U.S. citizen, then perhaps put them on some kind of a watch list, because they should be watched. And I don't feel controversial at all for saying that. If you feel open about saying death to America and death to Israel, chances are you might not be the best person. I also want to talk about the fact that I don't know what the numbers are, Tracy. I don't claim to know. But I would assume that there are more American Jews in this country than American Muslims. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would tend to believe there's probably more Jewish Americans than Muslim Americans. Why are the Democrats not worried, or seemingly worried, about losing the Jewish American vote by not confronting that head on, not actually supporting Israel, and providing comfort and coddling to the people that would say death to America, death to Israel, people that have been protesting on college campuses for months now? Why do you think that is? And do you think that they are at all worried about the American Jewish vote?
I don't. I think it's been a very steady thing for them for decades now. As a matter of fact, coming from New York, that was the one obstacle we always faced, is that we could not get our Jewish friends to vote Republican, and we never could understand why. It was just ingrained in them for some reason. No idea why. I think they're very confident. I think they're confident they're picking up enough votes in the illegal immigrant category. I think they're confident they can tamper with elections if they need to. I think they're confident that their extremist ways are embraced by enough people that they'll run out to the polls. I think they'll use the abortion cudgel as a way to get suburban women who are pro-abortion out. And I don't think it's something that they're worried about when the greater goal here is destabilization in this country. They're not going to be worried about one section of voter who may be up in arms when they can pick up a whole different crew of folks to come on in and do their bidding. And that's the end goal here, is destabilization of this country. And you'll see the whole show today that we've talked through has been that goal. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, there's more to that. The illegal immigrant TikToker, TikTok influencer, Leno Moreno, something or other, he's been posting videos over a period of quite some time. The most recent one about how he could take advantage of squatting protections to invade U.S. homes. Well, now he's in an Ohio jail, and he's really sad that his rights and freedoms and his First Amendment rights, which he does not have because he's an illegal, are being infringed upon, and he feels like he is being persecuted. Again, I think that all of his videos, it would be really cheap to cut those together and make that into a Trump ad. Maybe save some fundraising dollars on that. But what's your take on this? And what's your take on the mood of the country, who's obviously very upset about illegal immigration, when they see somebody like this, who's in our country, who was let in Eagle Pass, illegal immigrant? Do you think that these kind of visible cases are going to get some of those heavily ingrained Democrat voters to maybe jump ship and come over to the Republican side, or maybe just stay home?
I think that the immigration issue is one that will cause a bunch of Democrat voters to kind of, and you know what? Listen, what are we talking about here? Democrat voters. Who is a Democrat voter? I think at this point you have a centrist and then you have an extremist. The same thing on the right. I don't think you could argue that. You have somebody who kind of leans independent, and then you have the extremists. And those camps are actually spreading apart even more and becoming more and more enraged. So the center Democrat, who's not a real staunch extremist progressive, is going to be upset about this. It's one of the key issues. Every time we start talking immigration, there's some kind of a distraction in the media that comes out to get people to stop talking about it. But this is, everybody, I lived through this. I had this happen to me in New York. I had left my home there. I still owned it. Some family moved in, not the family's fault. They thought they were renting, a house for X amount of dollars a month. But I owned the house. Somebody saw that it wasn't occupied, created a fake lease, and in they moved. And it was a nightmare. But this is a ploy. And again, he's not a citizen. So this whole thing really, really got me. I mean, so brazen, so entitled. That's the way a lot of them are. Ask any New Yorker right now. I don't live there anymore. It sounds like I do, but I don't. Ask any New Yorker how they feel about what's going on in New York City right now with the influx of illegal immigrants, and see where they're thinking of placing their votes in November. I can guarantee you it is a massive wedge issue for the Democrats, which is why we always get the counter or the distraction to try and take their eyes off of that ball.
Yeah, the illegal immigrant issue and now the squatting issue, whether it's illegals that are squatting or Americans that are squatting, New York protects criminals. And that's unfortunate. I will tell you, I was just in New York this past week, and I was sitting next to somebody. Everybody likes to ask me what I do, and depending on how I am and how secure the location is, I'll tell them where I work. And, of course, this person was a Democrat, and they told me that, Donald Trump's the worst. He needs to stop talking, and he can't believe the crazy Governor Abbott and crazy Governor DeSantis. So I pressed him a little bit because I was feeling feisty, and I asked him what made DeSantis and Governor Abbott so crazy. And he was talking about, the immigration issue. And I said, well, do you like the streets of your city being filled with hundreds of thousands of illegals? And of course, no, he was irate about it. But I see the disconnect there, and that's why I call liberalism a disease, because I sat right next to somebody who said that he thinks Abbott and DeSantis are crazy because of their hardline position on immigration, but simultaneously said he's sick of illegal immigrants and squatters in his own city, but he is still going to vote Democrat. So that tells me that things, as much as you'd think there would be a convert to Republican, some of these people, unfortunately, I don't think are ever going to change.
Even when you ask them, Tommy, you say, hey, we need you to house some refugees. Every time there's an excuse, I can't, I don't have the room, I'm not allowed, I can't do it now. They would never take them into their own home. But you're right, there is a very serious mental disorder out there. I just hope that there are normal people living their lives, going to the grocery store, going to the gas pump. I always say people who are still able to go to yoga. And until that changes, I think we might have a little bit of a problem. It's not hard enough yet to get people to really open their eyes, but I'm an optimist. We've had this conversation before. So.
Okay. Well, maybe we need to start putting illegal immigrants in yoga studios and Barry's Boot Camp and Orange Theory and wherever the New Yorkers, the elite New Yorkers, go on a daily basis. I don't know if they go to the Jamba Juice or what they do, but let's start putting illegal immigrants there, and maybe that'll make a change. Tracy, as always, I appreciate your commentary, and I hope to have you back very soon. I want to share your optimism. I wish I did more, but maybe as we get on down the line, we'll have some more optimism coming our way. Be safe with the solar eclipse. A lot of people are freaking out, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
South Carolina women's basketball coach and legend in her own right, Dawn Staley, could not find it within herself to stand up for her own gender or her own sport. It's time for Final Thoughts presented by American Financing. You sure would think if you were a female athlete and then went on to coach women's sports, you'd be one of the foremost advocates, guardians, and protectors of not only the category, but the women in it. But no, not in the case of South Carolina women's head basketball coach Dawn Staley. When asked by OutKick's very own Dan Zakshevsky if she supports bio males in women's sports, well, this is what she said.
If you consider yourself a woman and you want to play sports or vice versa, you should be able to play. That's my opinion. You want me to go deeper?
Do you think transgender women should be able to participate
that's your question
in
you want
basketball?
Me to ask. I mean, you want to ask, so I'll give you that. Yes.
All right, so she is getting both praised and eviscerated for that answer. And while I hate her answer and believe it lacked spine, I think there's something deeper to dissect here. The most important part of that interaction wasn't her answer at all. It was her obvious hesitation. While I am not in Coach Staley's head and don't claim to be, if I had to guess what she was thinking in that moment is whether she was going to give us a real answer or some woke BS that would appease the internet. She made her choice. Was it genuine? No, I don't think so. It would be beyond hard to fathom that a woman who not only played women's sports but now coaches women in women's sports would support men hijacking the space. Would she be ready and willing to cut one of her girls to free up the space for a biologically superior male? Well, I would sure as hell hope not. But Coach Staley knows what we all know. If she did not give that answer and did not bow to the Rainbow Mafia, the sports media folks, along with the vocal minority of really loud and really whiny social media justice warriors, well, they would have had her head and maybe even her job. So she caved and she gave that answer. And no, I don't think she meant it. But it is a testament to the power the Rainbow Mafia has over much of the world. And that's why every frickin' June, corporations around the world are forced to don the rainbow and celebrate the sexual preferences of the minority. And that's why sports teams are all but forced to have pride nights and once again celebrate the sexual preferences of the minority. And that's why DEI is even a thing. The LGBTQ extremists have rainbow whipped the country into going along with anything and everything they decide must be tolerated, even if it goes against other tenets of liberal thought, i.e. feminism, or basic science, i.e. what is between your legs isn't up for interpretation. And the reason the Rainbow Mafia has this power is that we gave it to them. Case in point, South Carolina women's basketball coach Dawn Staley, who would sooner sell out her own athletes rather than piss off the wokesters who live somewhere over that rainbow. So I guess our own cowardice created this, and now women and women's sports will be the sacrificial lamb at the altar of woke. All because we, the normal and sane, have decided standing up for what is right isn't worth being called a name. Shameful all the way around. Those are my final thoughts from Nashville. God bless and take care.